Om Shri Sairam. Welcome all of y'all into another online satsang. I pray to Swami that we feel his omnipresence in each of our homes. Today, we have the opportunity of listening to his story, to Bhagwan's Leelas through the voice of Brother Pushkaraj Gumaste. Brother Pushkaraj is from Mumbai. In fact, his connection with Mumbai is so strong that he was the first youth coordinator when the youth wing started in 1995. Of course, he was blessed to be a Sai student, and he accompanied Swami to Kodaikanal, Ooty, Chennai, and has various beautiful experiences with Bhagwan. Professionally, he has been part of many multinational banks. For the last 16 years, he has been associated with Barclays Bank. He recently moved to UK to take up leadership position as part of the he's a managing director with the Barclays Bank and handles international corporate clients. Personally, we all know that he has always been guiding the alumni, the students, and the youth. And one thing I can personally vouch for is his humility. Whatever he has achieved over, over the years he has worked professionally, he's always been a very humble human being. Also, he is a fitness enthusiast. He is into cycling, and he is also on the board of an NGO which works in the field of education. I now request Brother Pushkaraj to address all of us. Thank you.
Sairam Dinesh, we can start with 3 Omkars now. Oh. With loving pranams at the feet of Mother Sai, all my elders, brothers and sisters, these are the local present times of COVID where we are connecting virtually, but I do believe we've derived a lot of joy in remembering our dear Lord. And I'm just praying to Him to share some tidbits with all of us through me today. I remember a song which I will hum, which I sang in 1992 in the welcome program for in the hostel. It's a very popular Hindi song, which goes like this. चल के तुझे मैं लेके चलूं एक ऐसे गगन के तले जहां गम भी न हो आंसू भी न हो बस प्यार ही प्यार पले एक ऐसे गगन के तले. My thoughts of choosing this song at that point of time was based on how I perceived my next 2 years when I joined the MBA course in 1992. But I was blown away, to be honest. It was a storm which entered, and we probably had been planning to enter my life for 25 years ahead of that, or in fact, yeah, it is 25 years, though I was 22 when I entered. It was planning to invade my life in a positive way and then pervade it through it for 25 years. And what lives with me, I recently turned 50. What lives with me after passing out in 1994 is the fact that the silent transformation which Bhagwan carries out with all of us, seen, unseen, spoken, unspoken, is something which only when you sit for such sessions do you remember, or in those calm moments, even when Dinesh talked about my cycling and running. Even when I am doing those, when I'm spending time with myself, that's when tears well up. I'm very emotional right now. And then you understand what Bhagwan as and Swami, as we popularly call him and lovingly call him, has done for all of us. So the story goes, as I said, 25 years back, my family was had been introduced to Swami. I have one physical set of parents, another foster parents, which is my Masi and her husband, and spent my time across both the houses growing up. They had been introduced to Swami in 66, 67, 66 around. And in 66, 67, I don't remember the exact year. I think it is 66. And this is because this is what I've heard from my parents. My father, they had one daughter at that point of time. We had three siblings. And my father had suddenly, over a period of a month or two, developed paralysis of his left side. Started with the back and completely, it was not exactly paralysis, but he couldn't use his hand completely. It was completely unusable. Being associated with doctors through his life, all the doctors in Bombay at that point of time saw him, examined him, and said, probably this is how you will have to live with it through the life. My grandmother and my aunt and they all said that, and my mother saying, there is this Sai Baba whom you know, why don't you go and ask? And he said, why? I mean, my doctors have told me. I think eventually the pressure by his partner, my mother, convinced him to at least take the journey. And it was quite difficult at that point of time to reach Puttaparthi. So, and he was not in any good position. So they hired a driver because he couldn't drive. And about 5, 6 of them packed in a car and drove down from Bombay. I'm talking of 66 years. And they reached, and my grandmother was also there with them, and one of my buas. They all reached Puttaparthi in the early morning. It was Guru Purnima day. And they had, I think, a day prior or post, and they were told that Swami just left yesterday for Vrindavan, for Bangalore. So can you please go there? There was nobody here. So they immediately drove, must have taken a short refreshing break and went all the way. By the time they reached Bangalore, Vrindavan, Swami had already gone in and retired for the day. And people were just dispersing. So they somehow tried to look around what to do. They asked people. People said, no, Swami is gone. He said, but we have come all the way from Bombay. Can you please tell him? And so on and so forth. After about 15 minutes, a person came and said, who's come from Bombay all the way with a car and who's not well? So obviously they were surprised. Bhagwan had sent some vibhuti for them, saying, stay and come tomorrow for darshan. And that's how they retired for the day. Next day, they were all standing. Swami used to come out and go under the banyan tree. He walked by on his way, and that's it. I mean, he didn't even look around, I think so. And this is all, as I said, mentioned by my father. On his way back, he looked, and I think someone must have prodded my father, at least go and tell So Swami looked around saying, what happened? Have you come from Bombay? He said, yes. And he says, I can't move my hand. So Swami said, where? Who said you can't move? Where? Lift up your hand. And my father lifted his hand. And that was it. There was, most of the people didn't even realize that he had completely, I mean, there was nothing. And he said, don't worry, I'll send some prasad as well. And take care, and you don't need to stay, you can go back. Dutifully, my father actually took a vacation. They went to Mysore and came back to Bombay. And Swami, of course, had sent some prasad as well for them. And on his way back, my father drove the car instead of the driver. And that was the situation. So that was something which I had heard about while I was growing. I was introduced to Swami as God. And I think I mentioned, and some of the things which I will share, many of you would have even heard me speak about it in Dharmakshatra. So I grew up. I was born in a house which had this overbearing aura of divinity in the house. For me, it was someone who used to visit Mumbai 4 times at that point of time in early 70s a year. We were so blessed that never did I even feel like going to Puttaparthi. And my earliest memory was when I was 3 years old, in Dharmakshatra, waiting for darshan, and Swami trying to play mischievously between, trying to tell me and my aunt, who was on Sevadal duty, to saying that I know who you both are. Times went by. I grew up. Once I used to keep asking Swami that, can you please do my thread ceremony? Just to note, I was only asking because my parents used to tell me to ask him. I honestly never knew what is the meaning of thread ceremony. We didn't have Google, of course. Today you can always Google saying what is thread ceremony. And Swami used to keep saying that you just reduce, I will do this. I will you're just too fat. You're just too fat. Kept saying this. Eventually, in 1983, circumstances happened where we were told that he was conducting mass Upanayanam or thread ceremony for all the students of the educational institutions of Swami. And he said that, and the word Swami had told that he will conduct my thread ceremony along with those students, and see how the transformation. I mean, this was 1983. I became a student in 1992. When I'm saying a student in the sense of the educational institution, as I said, that all of us are students. So I'll just take a pause here, and I'm just going to shift a bit into while I will recontinue my story. What is it which binds the students, or even Brother Dinesh talked about youth wing? Why is it so easy? I have studied in a school right from my junior KG up to 10th standard. For nearly 12 years, I was there. I know my batchmates, some of them. Some of them I don't even recollect. Outside of those batches, I don't have a relationship with anybody. Here, we are in a situation where Vijay Bhaskar sir, while he was 15 years, 18 years elder to us while he went through his education. There are students who just about 6 months back, there was a student who just passed out, which means practically 24 years later. And he just called saying, brother, can I speak to you? And I said, yes, what do you want? Where is this bond coming from? Where? when the youth wing was formed, and there are so many, and I still believe I am part of the youth wing, because Swami used to all identify us as boys, and I will not change that till he tells me that no, you're not a boy any longer, or we are not boys. But the fact is, there are boys who used to all work. There was Ajay Nair, Litesh. I mean, I can't take every name, but the fact is, it takes, even if we have not spoken to each other for maybe 3 years, tomorrow if there is a call, we can spend 1 hour talking to each other. And that is the transformation which I wanted to talk about. That where did this go? Where no one told us. The fact is, 1992, during the summer course, we used to, and there was an incident. And now I think back that how has that happened? That Swami used to keep, I saw in my initial days, few days, I'm saying 2, 3 days, that Swami used to say that in his discourse, saying, God is your only friend. He will be with you thick, thin. He will not ask. You don't have to, you have to take him for granted. Everybody else is a brother and sisters. So, and obviously, in my initial days, I started. I was having some physical problem, back is paining, and so on and so forth. And I started talking to one of my batchmates who had been through the educational institution. So he was well aware I was coming from outside, as like many other students in my batch. And we got close, we got friends, we were friends. And one day, we were all, after Swami's discourse, used to run back to Brindavan hostel and stand in the queue to get in, because Swami used to usually come for a meal, to bless us all, and then used to go back. And I was the third person standing there, and he came, he crossed me, came back and said, "Hey, where is your friend?" So I looked around and I said, "I think his mother has come." And so we immediately held my hand, saying, "What did he just tell? I am your friend. I will never leave you. Everybody else, brother. Hello, hello. That is all." Now, go ahead 26 years. And this is the transformation which I'm talking about. That how is it possible that a 20-year senior, either through the organizational setup or from students from an educational institution, or 20 years junior, how are we able to connect with each other just by a call saying, Sairam brother, I need your help, or what do you think about it? It never is an intrusion in our life. And people around me, I have my friends outside of the Satya Sai system, and they look at me saying, how is it that you people have this brotherly love? You've not even met them. And then I say that this is the transformation. Unseen hand has already worked, where we actually feel the the brotherly love towards people, can talk to each other. Why? Because we all share a common parent. And the common parent, when I'm saying, yes, we have seen the motherly aspect, we've seen the fatherly aspect, all of us, I mean, believe me. And which is why we all are able to immediately have the same wavelength of ability to speak. It is never an intrusion. We don't need appointments to speak to each other. So that was the transformation which I'm saying, that no one talked about it. Swami said, did I remember every day of my life and tried to follow it? No. But it just happened because somewhere something internally changed. So coming back to, I'm just coming back to the growing up years. As I said that, yes, I went there. Swami conducted the thread ceremony. I should have taken that as a signal saying, maybe I should join the institution. I resisted a lot to join that institution. It would have been 8th or 9th standard at that point. And I said, no, I don't want to be. My father supported me. And again, our stomachs were full because Swami used to come so many times to Bombay, 4 times certainly. And it was never felt, the need was never felt, the call hadn't come. We had funny incidents in between. So when Swami used to come, he used to be God. When he used to go back, I was growing up in Bombay. I'd never woken up before sunrise, never through my childhood. And my initial days in Perth were very difficult. I have experimented with trying to change every food diet. Someone told me, don't eat rice, you will stop sleep, because I used to wake up at morning for um, in the morning, and 5:15, I think 5:10, they used to wake us up in the hostel. I stopped rice, I stopped chapati, and so on and so forth. Nothing. After 3 months, your body just got used to it. But so while growing up, I had one funny incident, not related overtly to Swami, that after my thread ceremony, I came back growing up. I was very, very naughty, extremely, and used to fight with my sisters, and my parents were probably worried, and both my foster parents. So they took me to somebody in Five Gardens, Matunga, who was a person who was not like a Baba or like an ascetic, but he was endowed with a lot of spiritual powers. And he was working somewhere else. And in the evenings, twice a week, we could go and meet him. And I was resisting. And throughout, I was saying the Gayatri Mantra, saying, Swami, save me. I don't want him to know what's in my head. I am 13 to 14, 15 years old, extremely naughty. No, please save me. That is all throughout that journey. And they had just given me 30 minutes of warning that we are going somewhere. So I go there, they speak to him, and then they call me in. I'm sitting up opposite this person, very nice, very loving person. And he says, just ask me a few questions, and then closes his eyes. Um, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, starts moving his hand. Then another 5 minutes, silence. And I'm praying. I'm just saying the Gayatri Mantra. Finally, after 5 more minutes, he just holds his head, continues for 2 more minutes, and then opens his eyes and calls my parents, both sets of parents, saying, take him, he's okay. So they say, what do you mean he's okay? He says, no, he has a protective ring around him. I don't know what it is. I am trying to even read his mind, which I can do for all of you. The moment I do that, there's a huge snake, nag, which comes and just tells me, just back off. I have tried to do absolutely everything, and now I've got a headache. I cannot. But the fact that somebody has put a ring around him, you don't need to worry. He will come out the other end. Please, he's not your child. You take him away. Now, I obviously, as a young child, I was obviously a teenager rather. I was thrilled. I prayed to Swami. I thanked him, saying, "Okay, good." Without even going to the next level, saying, "Can you please now take care of me, where I can understand, or I want to come to you?" Nothing. Net. I think the call and the earning comes at a time. 91, I tried, and I won't get into that story today, but maybe some other time. I did, after my engineering, try to get into MBA in Perthi. And at that point of time, there was a lot of opposition in my house, mainly from my father, and saying you can do it in IIMs, you can do it in Bajaj. And when I listen to the other sessions, they are so similar. I mean, there is a common thread which goes through, as I was hearing Jitu's story as well. Clearly, I am stubborn. I say, no, I want to go to Perthi. I've done the research. I met a few students, and I go ahead. I get my admission. And obviously, I can't join. So I have to actually call the dean to say I cannot join. And I'm angry at Swami, saying, that's fine. I will now take care of myself. You don't need to. We tried to, but it didn't work. Willy-nilly, next 1 year when I'm working after my engineering, he pursues me in uh, various ways. Various ways. I go to my first office, greets. I'm greeted with a huge photograph of Swami. No one in the office has any clue why this photograph is there. Then someone says the person who's rented out this place, the owner, is a devotee of Satya, someone called Satya Sai Baba. So I take that, I ignore it. And then it becomes just too obvious. A client I go to, he turns around, he has a Swami's photograph. He says, "Do you know him?" I said, "Yes." And it just keeps happening. I go to a bar, a restaurant. Behind the owner's this thing, there is a Swami's photograph. I run away from there. So all of this happens. He comes to Bombay in Jan 1992. And on his way back, tells me in Telugu, which I understand later, saying, "This is your last chance. Don't forget." Uh, I, I I go through the process. It is extremely miraculous. The day I post my application letter, because this time my father has suddenly turned around and said, I think you should go there only. I made a mistake last year. And the day I post my form, which is the last day for receiving there, the AD slip, which comes with the registered post, has the stamp of the same day in the Puttaparthi. It is, and that's when my cockiness, my arrogance, in a way, comes up saying, "Okay, now I don't need to study because I think this is too miraculous, too coincidental. I'll go through. I'll get the admission." So I don't study for the exam. Whatever I study in the 30 minutes previous night under a kadapa stone in behind the sheds, that's exactly what the paper is. I don't even need to attempt. I'm just marking the answers because I have just read whatever I've read. So all of this happens. I join. I have still no clue about what is being a student means. I thought I was just coming for education here. And Swami will come in and we will have some darshan and so on and so forth. And then the college starts. Uh, and that is what takes away. And these are incidents, these are not miracles. Miracles happen, these are calling cards. But the smaller aspect is what transforms your heart. My first recollection as a student seeing Swami close was as small an incident. If you, for those who have seen Bhagavan, that before his discourse, there used to be a Vedam group who used to stand and then they will take Path Namaskar. And that is when I realized, where is this motherly love coming from? That when they are taking Path Namaskar, Swami's hand, while was on blessing, his larger attention used to be on ensuring that that none of the students bang their head while they are getting up after taking namaskar next to the table where he used to sit for his discourse. How many of us even will do that? And you see this day in and day out. How is it not possible that you will not do the same? Not that somebody is taking namaskar, but what I'm trying to say is try to be sensitive to somebody else to ensure that they don't get hurt. These are the messages which come to us, and this is extremely a very minor thing, but you see that love that there are 10,000 people there. He's trying to ensure that right now this boy who's taking Pad Namaskar shouldn't bang his head. I still remember and the bhajan still plays in my mind. This was June of June end, third week or something of June 1993. We had stayed back in Patti after this was in our second year, rather first to second we were going to transition, and we had come back from Kodai. Then we had to do a summer project in Bangalore city. All of us were going through various offices. Swami left after the summer course, told us he has work to do. there's a lot which happened in during those times. And in 1993, we were very worried, concerned, praying that we hadn't seen him. So we were all wanting to come back. And finally, when we finished our project, we came back. And Swami's instructions were to the warden saying, please give them tea and coffee when they come, some snacks to eat. But just ensure that the tea and coffee is given to them in a cup and saucer. They've gone to offices in Bangalore. Don't give them in tumblers. Now, I mean, so this is okay. He's given, the warden is there. We said we want to go. No, 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 please have tea and coffee. We rush. It's nearly 5:35, 5:40, and which is why we want to rush, because 5:30 the bhajans used to start. And there's a bhajan called Hare Murare Sai Ram. I can still close my eyes and remember the tunes. Evening, June, pleasant winds playing, 15, 20,000. And Guru Purnima was in, I think, a few weeks, probably 10 days or something. There were crowds swelling. Swami was just enjoying the bhajan. We went and sat behind, and the warden said, no, 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 go and sit on the front down. This is not today's mandir. This was the old, this thing was an open, so that he can see you have come. And we all sit, and Swami just turns around and his face blooms. He gets down, glides towards us. While looking and giving darshan, he's standing there just swaying. And while that, he doesn't want to stop the bhajans being, the rhythm being broken. He just looks down at us, and what does he ask? Chai piya? Cup mein piya ki tumbler mein piya? He had tears in his eyes, just looking at us. How? Where is this love coming from? Why won't you reciprocate or automatically? This kind of, and why would you not? And that is the transformation which I keep talking about. So I'm just switching in and out of few incidents and then going back. So obviously we had a lovely time in the initial times. There's a lot of push by the teachers as well, saying, oh, you're the first year MBA, you don't know what it means. Please ask for this Swami to spend some time in an interview. We kept asking as a group. Finally, Swami said, okay, I will speak to you. He called all of us in with the teachers, spent time, talked a lot about what are his expectations. And he spoke about what we should do in the MBA and why we should, and we should ask him, and he's overseeing. But he's also, the other aspect was the conduct. And that's how he tried to explain, because a lot of people in our batch, especially our batch from previous batches, a majority of us were actually people who were students who were coming from outside. We had no background to the educational system. So he said that he talked about the aspect that this is education which will make you ready for everything in life, not only running your companies or doing your job. So ensure that you spend. He talked about discipline. We had to learn. I mean, that doesn't mean that we all followed whatever it is. We've gone through our own ups and downs, and that is where we have seen the fatherly love as well of Bhagwan. And obviously, at that point of time, when you start seeing this kind of interaction, you aspire for an interview, personal interview. You still don't know. I had never had a personal interview. And then people start talking about, there is one particular boy who was called for an interview. We were all sitting behind, and then he comes out and calls me, saying, Swami is calling you. I am so nervous by then. And I am saying, are you sure he's calling me or somebody else? He says, no, 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 it is you, because what he told me was last evening, before bhajans, there was somebody sitting on next to you. call him. I said, how do you know you have two sides? What if somebody else was on the other side and you want to call? He says, come now, there are people, everybody is inside for the interview already. I go in with him. He shuts and Swami says, shut the door. I shut the door and he looks at me saying, Are, isko kyun bulaya? Isko nahi. So he stands saying, Swami, you said ki somebody is sitting next to you. He says, nahi, on the other side. Who was sitting? I am annoyed. I am embarrassed. I don't know. I am looking for some place to hide there. And I don't want to go out also. But then I stand up. I think my anger and my ego gets the better of me. I am ready to walk out. So I stand up to start opening the door. He says, no. Swami says, Abhi aaya hai to baitho. So I'm saying, okay, now next 40 minutes mujhe baithna hai yahan pe. Kuch nahi karna hai. So I was just sitting in a corner. I was not paying attention to what is happening in the room. I was hearing it. Then he took people inside. After everybody was done, he says, out. I said, are you sure? Are you sure, Swami? मैं आऊं? हाँ, आओ अंदर. Then he calls me inside and says, क्या करेगा? वो दूसरा बॉय बहुत रोएगा. इसलिए हमको बोलना पड़ा. So that ये जाके बोलेगा उसको. तो I hope you don't mind. Now, how? And then obviously there is no bond. There is no communication needed. Once this bond begins, there is nothing. Swami doesn't need to talk to you. You don't need, and I'm saying this with utmost humility, you do not need physical Bhagwan next to you. Once and that communication, he is the one who has to, you have to just open, because his point was only thing, मैं chance देगा, be ready. तुमको नहीं मालूम कभी chance देगा, but enjoy. That was his only this thing. And then it was the question of how do you open, how do you take. A few of us were blessed. He had obviously told us to come in the front all the time. We obviously used to do that, but we did it with a bit of impunity, had to pay for it. And our entire batch also had to pay for it. Because once Bhagwan was very, very angry at our batch, because you people are not, you're trying to, because I'm giving you chances, you break lines, you come in the front. What about school students? So he had sent word saying, I'm not happy at all. And we pleaded. That's the best part. You plead, you pray, and he's there, Daya Sagar. He will just say, okay, next time. I remember Bhagwan telling us once that, do you know that why do I keep saying the same things in a discourse? How many times I repeat is because you people don't listen. You don't action what I tell you. That is why I have to continuously repeat. There were times when the best of the management concepts were explained. I remember him talking about the soap making process and how a bit of greed can make a soap of inferior quality without the consumer knowing that it is of inferior quality. And till date, I have tested it by cutting a cake of soap, because Bhagwan used to, these are not things which are written ever in a book of management. So while the theoretical education was continuing to happen, we were enjoying the bliss of Bhagwan. A lot of incidents were happening. Many of us not many of us, but many of our batchmates were talking about omniscience. We were testing the omniscience. It was immediately, and in Pathi, the test was being answered absolutely immediately. So you ask a question or discuss a concept in the class with your professor, and Professor Bhagya used to be someone who used to provoke students in a debate to talk about these aspects. And bang, in the evening, there used to be a reply from Swami. We had our Diwali break. A few of us did not go. Swami went to Brindavan, told us, yes, you can come. Followed the protocol of requesting the warden, saying, is it okay if my students, my boys come? They will not create any, and they will pay for it. And I still remember we were stuck with that protocol. And that's a lesson which is stuck with us, that he as the chancellor can any day command. And that is what the Brindavan warden had told, saying, Swami, is there a mistake? He says, no, that is because you are accountable to the hostel. If tomorrow there is a problem in the hostel, it's your head, not these boys. These boys will anyway have to pay in whatever form. Now, these are concepts which stick with you all the time. This is not something which will go away when you are running, you are having responsibilities. That protocol is extremely important. I do remember, though, which I had not mentioned the last time, that we actually didn't know how to pay to that warden for those few days. And on our way back, we were all in a bus for after spending the Diwali, the break. Actually, it was not Diwali. And Swami sent word saying, boys, you forgot to pay the money for using this hostel. Don't worry, I will pay, because he has to keep his accounts. We actually, after having promised something, we did not hold good on that. And he just reminded us and said, don't worry, I have taken care. These are the management lessons which you learn. I mean, I'm again taking a slight pause here. All of us, I mean, I have been working for nearly 26, 27 years. And when Bhagwan, when what we learned, look around today's time, not specifically COVID, but what's happening outside. And I still reminisce the definition of manager as he had explained, saying mind of man, awareness of Atma, nature of nations, aspect of environment, guidelines for goodness, inquiry into ethos, the role of rules. Everything is relevant today. 20 years back, people were not talking about environment. People were not talking about ethical or moral aspects in management or in business. And that's what he was trying to get us or the system ready. And whether it is the educational system, it is the Satyasai Seva organization, Seva organization, it doesn't matter. The basic foundation or edifice is actually based on absolutely these aspects of along with devotion. So coming back, I had one funny incident thought I will share, and how things become a bit. And I was speaking to my sister yesterday and remembering that. So after my interview, Swami used to talk, have some playful connect, just to tell me that you probably need this. I need to give you some more at a physical level. Then my parents were gonna come, and he was asking me, saying, when are your parents coming? When are your parents coming? So finally, at some stage, they were coming. So I told him. He says, okay, unse baat karta hai. Previous evening, he says, हाँ, tomorrow you come, huh? Now, I didn't go and ask the warden, what does it mean? So I went in the evening, and I had gone with a camera and all, saying, yes, my parents have come now. And my sister was there, one of my sisters. We are going to get interview. And I go and sit right in the front. I have told the warden, sir, and got a chit saying, and to sit in the first line, because Swami had said parents. So he comes out at in the mandir. He opens the interview door at 3:30, 3:45. Opens the door and looks at me and says, "Arey, I told you yesterday to come. Why didn't you come this morning?" So I said, "What? You didn't say morning." He says, "You should know. You should have spoken to warden, sir. You don't follow. Now forget it. Tell them to go." And he goes for darshan. And I have practically tears in my eyes saying, what do I do now? And he's gone. He comes back. He has asked people to come for interview. blesses the birthday boys. The birthday boys, I take the photographs because I have a camera sitting next to it. Then he asks people to go in, then looks at me saying, "Aha, bulao, bulao, call them." So I call my mother and sister and father. They come. We go inside, and we have a very, I mean, blissful time. After some time, Swami then says that, "Okay, sabka photos likao, tum camera leke aaya na." So everyone in that interview room, there are no cameras, and unfortunately, we didn't have the phones with cameras then. So everyone who was there, their photos are taken by my camera. Swami is posing, this, that, everything done. We come out blissful. They go back, go to stay. I come back to the hostel. I sleep at night. And in the middle of the night, I get a dream by Swami saying, "Did you check if there was a roll in that camera? Who told you to just take the camera which your father has brought? Why did you assume there is a roll? Did you ask your father?" He's telling me nicely, sitting down. He says, "Now, too bad. Carry me in your heart. No photo required." I see this in my dream. I wake up. It's in the middle of the night. I go back to sleep. In the morning, I am wake up and I said, "No, there's something wrong." I can't open the camera, obviously, because the film will be exposed. So I am waiting for darshan, and somehow till 3:45, I'm running to the darshan. I saw my father. I go to him saying, "Was there a camera, a roll in the camera?" He says, "No, it was an empty camera." I thought you will put the roll. How should I carry from Bombay a camera with a roll in it? No, you know how to do it. And I'm saying, "Okay, I will tell you later." And Swami just comes out for darshan, looks at me saying, smiles and walks away. Because he had already answered that by saying, "You don't need a photo. Carry me in your heart." The problem obviously was I had to friend a lot of other people other than my parents and my sister, uh, who kept asking, "Where are the photos?" And I had to tell them, "Sorry, sir. Swami had already, I didn't have a role." And we had posed. So nearly 10 minutes of posing had gone. So very, very funny incidents which stay with you through the time. Um, then of course times came. There was a medical conference. Bhagwan spent a lot of time. There were plays at that point of time. In fact, if you, Siddharth, or you can just show the college photographs. So those times were all essentially, this was our batch of taken on during the summer course. And some of the times which we spent in plays, and he used to use this. I know that these are the chances which Swami is taking. I am there on the right of Bhagwan. And the amount of time he used to spend in directing or spending in ensuring that emotions more than the actual words are more important. And it prompted a lot of action. You can just flip through, brother, on those things. We were all not used to it. All of us used to stay in one room. I wasn't prepared for this originally, but it is that person in the center, Bhagwan, who used to ensure that we all, lived an absolutely happy life. Does not mean we didn't have fights. We had fights about who will wake up whom for Suprabhatam, but that's the way it was. Just browse through. You can go to the next one. And these were all times. This is during the sports meet. And that is my camera, which I wanted to actually show, that there was this camera, but didn't have roll. This time there was a roll. I had learned my lesson of asking. So that's fine. Essentially, as Jan came, as I had mentioned, we had gone to Chennai. The Chennai trip was memorable. It had our previous that the seniors and juniors, the doyens of the industry came. They were looking after us absolutely like VIPs. We didn't even have to look on the other side, and before someone came to say, "What do you need?" And finally, Swami called us and called all of them, saying, "Do you know who this person is? Do you know?" All of these people were extremely, very acclaimed people in their personal lives and professional lives, but because of Swami's guests as students, we were the ones we were called VIPs. And Swami said that I hope you never forget that the attachment goes a long way, and that is the treatment which you're getting. I think I mentioned this in the last time round. And one of the incidents which will always stay with me is the fact that Swami was carrying once in Kodaikanal, which was in April, May. He traveled. We had gone to see some particular point, and on his way back, we asked him. We prayed, and he said, "Okay, I'll come in your bus." And his car was going ahead with curtains drawn. And as we reached Sai Shruti, or started reaching, a lot of devotees were breaking coconuts, throwing garlands, and we all, Swami said, "See." He spoke very jokingly initially, saying, "See, these people don't even know that I'm not and I'm sitting in the bus. So, but they are praying to the car." And we all laughed. And he says, "That is my Nandi because I use it. It has achieved divinity." And we continued laughing. And then he very sweetly looked around and said, "You all are my Nandis. Never forget that." That's transformation. He's not transforming you. He's just the tidbits, the pearls of wisdom just drop, and you're overawed sometimes. And then you say, "No, no, no. If he's calling, then probably there is time." And I originally thought that should we talk about our life is your message? I don't think, at least in present circumstances, I am at that stage. But at some stage, we are all on the journey to make that transition where instead of Swami saying, "My life is my message," we can go back to him and say, "Don't worry, Bhagwan, my life is your message." And that's the journey which we need to take. Coming back again, switching back to my academic life, we came from Chennai, and then the medical conference happened. Of course, um, the big question at that point of time was, there is this entire uh, cloud which starts bearing after Jan, when people start talking about who's going to Kodai. And that's a very difficult one because you don't know. The only way what you can do is pray and do nothing. And again, the aspect of physical, today we don't have Swami amongst us. How do you communicate? Prayer. That's the only way. Some people don't even pray because they believe that if Bhagwan is carrying you, in fact, I think we don't carry Bhagwan with us. Bhagwan carries us in our own bodies with us. And we had to just pray during that time, saying, "We don't know." My parents had asked me, saying, "Are you coming back to Bombay during which day? When are you coming back?" Now, superstitious, I am jinxed. Do I say no? If I say no, am I being arrogant to say I'm going to go to Kodaikanal? If I say yes, am I ruling myself out for Kodaikanal? This is the folk of life which we always face. And what do you do when you're faced with a decision where both things look equally bad? Is just pray. So most of us just went internal. And that was the best time because we were completely internal, at peace, trying to put our head down and just do our work. Believe me, that year, which was 93, 31st March, last day of our exam, still no word on who's going and when are we going to Parthi. to Kodai, or who's going. We come back from our exams on 31st March. So our academic schedule for first year is over. And the vice chancellor and registrar are waiting in the hostel. And the warden says that please go back and we'll call you. Now that's 15 minutes of extreme tension. A few of us are called and we are told that we'll leave in the next 2 hours or whatever, one or two. Because we have to leave for Vrindavan. And from there, next day is Ramnavami, you will all leave for Kodaikanal. Now, obviously, there was a lot of stress, but we were fortunate enough. We went ahead. I called my parents to say that I'm not coming. I'm going to this thing. We went to Vrindavan. He got very, very good snacks for us in the evening, waiting for us to come, and served us actually. And then went up in the balcony inside 3 and stood till we all ate, and then went in. And next day we left. We all left for Vrindavan, for Kodaikanal. On our way, we stopped. We spent some time. We reached. Now those next 34 days, I think so, because that was the last batch which were taken to Uti for 3-4 days before we left back. Was a different, and I think Brother Tribhuvan or was it someone did say in the previous sessions that Parthi, Trai Brindavan, Kodai are different facets of the love which you experience. Very, very different facets. We pretty quickly fell into place. The only thing which we were not used to is the good food, because we used to, I didn't mean to say in a bad way, but the fact was that food was something which was outstanding. It was not hostel food. Hostel food was very good, but this was rich food with so many varieties that we didn't know what to do. Most of us went for the kill. We dived right into those meals, and within a few days, most of us had upset tummies, couldn't do, and Swami used to make fun of us, saying, "Kaun bola itna khane ke liye? Mat khao, control." He also allowed us to pick up responsibilities. And again, a minor incident. Brother, there is a photograph of Swami giving a discourse, and that's in Kodai. If you put that, I just want, no. Yeah. So this was the bhajan hall where Bhagwan used to give discourse and bhajans used to be there in the evening. And on reaching, within a day or two, Swami only said that, "Oh, you are an engineer. Can you please, electrical engineer," he says, "can you please take care of the mics and sound system?" I had no clue. I mean, yes, these are just plug and play to some extent. That's okay. You can take it out. And I said, okay. I just sat in the afternoon, realized, and Gopi sir and a few sirs were there, and they said, "Don't worry." But from that day, it was my responsibility to, when Swami used to speak, put the mic and do the entire setup. One day, a few days later, I did that setup completely, and I was going back. Now, when you sit down, your shirt comes up if you're not conscious enough. So when you stand, your shirt is all up, and it's not a pleasant sight. Nobody tells you this. Most of the people are in fact feel awkward, saying there's something seen or whatever. Swami glides behind me and pulls down my shirt and says, "Take care next time." Whispers. That is the amount of protective shield which I was talking about comes around you. Today, and I'm not being arrogant here or pompous here, I will do that for my people who work for me. Not about clothes, but I'm saying, I mean, for any aspect, without, and this was a hall which was already full with people. No one realized what had happened. These are those minor things. When I also get up now, I have buy this thing, I will pull my shirt out because I'll never forget this. This is hard printed completely. Uh, Swami did ask us, saying, "Do you people want to sing?" If anyone, we had a few people like Ajneesh and Santosh and others who were Yashab, who were singing. So we were a bit apprehensive, but Swami tried to prod us, saying, "No, no, don't you want to sing?" So we all took our chance. And next day, in the morning after breakfast, when we were sitting, Swami said, "Not everybody is made for singing. It is okay if you have some other skill. All of you are skilled, but not everybody." So we got our message. Teacher said, "Okay, please no more singing. You might think you are singing well, but that is all." Things went, and we had, in fact, one of our batchmates. He had not come to Kodai, but just while our academic year was getting over, they had he was not feeling well just before that, and they had got him examined, and Swami had told the doctor, saying just to take him to the super speciality also, and they found he had to undergo heart surgery. And hence, while we were leaving, Swami had sent word with the vice chancellor after the exam, saying, "Tell him to stay back. We will do the operation in the month of April, and call his parents also." So Swami then told us, saying, "Tomorrow is the surgery." So we said, "Okay." Our batch students. The next day morning, Swami came back, very, very morose face, and looks at us and he says, "Ki wo nahi hai, chala gaya wo." So I said, "What? What?" Surgery couldn't save him. He's gone. I'm just translating. So our faces dropped. We didn't know what to say. What do we say? Swami is just telling us that one of my batchmates is dead. During the surgery, he looks around. Everybody is absorbing. Then he looks around and says, "What? Where is your faith? Where? Couldn't you tell me that, Swami, if you have committed to take his surgery, decide, ask, nothing will happen to him? Is this your faith?" And then we didn't realize what was happening. Swami said, "Everything is fine. Don't worry. He should be okay." And believe me, by mid-July, he was already playing football. He was a captain and a goalkeeper. Mid-July, I'm talking of. But that, the faith, and that is where he started talking about faith and experience. He, in fact, prompted a debate. Um, um, I think Mr. V.K. Narasimhan was there, and he was someone which Bhagwan used to do nice chabi to say, "You give the other extreme," and then he took some other people to do a for. And what was the debate about? The debate was around, I have to go back home because there's an emergency. My mother or sibling has had to undergo a serious emergency medical procedure. I have to go. The TC, there are no tickets available by train. The TC at Dharmaram station is saying, "You pay me bribe, I'll give you the ticket. What will you do?" For and against. 40 minutes there was a debate. Narasimhan sir was, "I will pay the bribe." Swami started that, saying, "Oh, you are going to argue that we should pay." And the other side, I don't recollect, was, "No, no, no, no. This is an ethical dilemma. There is no question. I have faith and Bhagwan will take care. I'm not going to give that." And that continued for 40 minutes. And eventually, Was it conclusive? No, it was not conclusive. Swami's point was faith, experience. It depends on what level of faith you are. Accordingly, you will have the experience. There is absolutely, and since then, it has been a consistent thing about what comes first. Is it faith? Is it experience? I remember once in the second year, after, and typically the way it used to happen is Sundays or Saturdays, Bhagwan used to distribute sweets. So he used to call about 7, 8 of us. And then after the distribution, we used to go back inside, and then he used to spend an hour, hour and a half, just talking about various aspects. One day he came in, and some 7, 8 of us were there, and shut the door, and he said, "Start jumping with your hands up." All of us thought we had misheard. Swami again said, "Put your hand up and start jumping." And we are looking, one boy started doing that. Everybody else is looking at, is Swami joking? What is he telling? Why is he telling us to jump? He waited for that thing to play out for a few seconds, and then said, "This is where I don't know. You people have no faith. I am giving you a command. What is happening in your head? You are boys who have full faith in me. You know that I am your God, your mother, your father. I will never mislead you. I have told you, put your hand up and start jumping." All of you, except this boy, that to the second time, is thinking, why Swami? Why are you bothered when I am telling you do? If you are on the 50th floor of a building and I tell you to jump, jump. Nothing will happen. You will float like bales of cotton. When they are to be put on fire, you just take one matchstick, everything will come down slowly, but it doesn't crash. You will. Then obviously he added very impishly, pain hoga, but I think you will have the capacity to take that pain. These are the lessons which, we all, I can't say much about it. I'm just conscious of time, so I'm just going to fast forward myself from Kodai, and maybe you can run through a quick of those Kodai photographs. But as I said, that once Bhagwan gave, as I said, Rajesh and one of my batchmates, operation separately, because one of us, our uh, batchmates, his stomach was not getting better at all. Then Bhagwan said that, okay, I will make something for you. So he actually made rasam for him while we were all, and there was a nice lesson at that point of time. We were all waiting, and whenever Brahmarpanam had to be done, a few of us used to shut our eyes and chant the Brahmarpanam. Swami came to us and he says, "I am standing in front of you. Whom are you looking for by shutting your eyes? I want to know." Just that's it. And he walks away. So, and then of course, that's enough. Yeah, I just thought I'll just share a bit of uh, nice memories. But so one of these days, on the day one, Indubai and Sarlaben was, yeah, you can stop sharing, were going to go back, and we were going to go to Ooty. And that's when Bhagwan talked about special devotee. Says people who listen to me. So what happens is, in Kodai, there is a Swami's chair. We all are sitting. Then there used to be a small a raised part, and behind that, most of the ladies used to sit. And Sarlaben was sitting there on the chair. And Swami gave Dubai namaskar, said, "You're all okay, you will go well, stay safe." Then he goes, and Sarlaban is trying to get up to take Pad Namaskar. Swami says, "Sit, sit." He sits, and there are 3 chairs next to her. Swami sits, leaving one chair in between, sits on the third chair from her, raises his feet, turns around and puts it on the chair, and he says, "Now take the Pad Namaskar." We are just looking. She takes the Pad Namaskar. He turns around, puts his feet down. He says, "Special devotee gets special Pad Namaskar. I am your devotee. You are not my devotee. I will do whatever it is for my devotees, but just follow what I am saying." This is something which stays. Quick, 5 minutes, maybe 3, 4 minutes. I'll fast forward, looking at time. So then we go to OT. That's another level. If Sai Shruti was here, the OT part, we are sleeping. There's a small 2 feet wall, and there's a French window kind, and Swami's bed is on the other side. Next day morning, of course, and I am someone who from my childhood have spoken and walked. I speak in my sleep and also walk in my sleep. My home in Dadar used to have 5 or 6 locks, because once I was my mother had seen me trying to open the door while completely asleep. And I see, next day Swami comes and says, "I could not sleep." So everybody is worried. He says, "This boy kept me awake, kept talking through the night. How can I sleep? There's nothing in between." And he looks at me saying, "When you die, people come to take your corpse. You are actually going to speak. Do you know this?" And they will all run away feeling scared. Remember this. And from that day, I am shifted to some other corner, saying, "Don't sleep near Swami's bed." So willy-nilly we reached. So we were on a different plane at a 50,000 feet, feeling we have wings. Reached Brindavan for the summer course and our project. It took all of 2 days. First day, great. Everybody is saying Sai Ram, everything. One of our batchmates had some injury in his leg, which was taking time, and he was not part of. He had not come to Kodai, so he had come from his home, and we all were there. And in Trai, outside, we were all sitting for darshan. He was sitting next to me, and so remember the talking bit. He was sitting next to me, and I just asked him, "How is he doing on his feet?" He says, "Theek hai bhaiya." That's it. Honest to God, there was no other conversation. 5 minutes later, Bhagwan opens the door, doesn't walk down the steps and walks along the path. He straight away gets on the lawn and walks straight towards me. 10 feet away, he has started shouting at me, saying, "Boys such as you are the reason everybody gets spoiled. It's one mosquito which bites. How much will you talk? You are talking and spoiling the environment. You should." And I have no clue what is happening. So I get up saying, "Swami, I did talk." "You are lying? Did you speak?" I said, "Yes." Now I'm trying to say that I just asked about how his feet were. He is red, really shouting. I am trying to argue, and people behind me are just trying to pull me, saying, "Keep quiet, keep quiet." So I just look at, and he says, "Nothing doing. Throw him out." He looks at somebody behind, which happened to be my principal and my warden, and he goes for darshan. So next moment, I see two things. One is there is nobody at least 15 feet near me. No student wants to be near me. I am. Second, I get called by the warden sir and the principal, our MBA dean. And he says, "Boy, Swami has told me to throw you out." Which means if he doesn't tell me not to throw you out, you are out. So think about where you're going to stay. After darshan, he is coming and he is sitting in the car. He's going to Brindavan, to Bangalore city, to Mr. Nijani's house. So if you don't get him now, then I don't know what you are going to do. So it's a matter of life and death for you. I'm already thinking, Alembic, do I know anybody? My former students are there. Can I ask them? So I am numb. I am not yet understood the gravity. The fact is I'm thrown out. Swami comes back. The moment he looks at me, he jumps on the lawn again. He doesn't want to stand close by or pass close by. I'm saying, Swami, he just does like this and goes in. Again, and there is nobody near me. Can you imagine darshan line where there is a 15 feet half like semicircle this thing where there is nobody other than me because no one wants to be near me. After some time, he calls 2-3 people, including the warden, sits in the car and goes off. I get up and I'm saying, okay, now I don't know what is my future. And then our professor says that all the MBA students have been called in the hostel. So we walk, I ask, am I also supposed to be there? He says, yeah, everybody, no? The hostel we are talking about, there's some announcement should be made. Warden sir comes. He says, boys, you saw what happened. Tomorrow onwards, your project is starting, or it had just started probably. You are going to go to Bangalore city and you'll be outside the system in a bit. You haven't been for last 1 year. Bhagwan wanted to send a message that you have to be extremely careful, not talk to strangers. He's very worried about you all. This was just a message to all of you. He's not going anywhere. He has told me that he can stay here, but all of you have to be extremely careful. He's going to watch you all. And I'm like, I am still around. Next 15 days of summer course, I didn't exist. Though I used to start noticing that he's giving glances at me, but not immediately turning the moment I'm noticing it. Everything happens, summer course ends, people go, we get our Kodai photos next day. And we go into Trai. I am made to sit a little behind because I'm not the most popular person on planet. And Bhagwan says, Are, your photo, come. As if the last 16 days did not even exist. And those were the times when you grew the most spiritually, if I may, because the only person whom you could speak to was you and your own conscience inside. And I think the times are, as I try and wrap up today's session, are two learnings. One is we need to be inside instead of around us. If we want to speak, there is a lot of Bhagwan inside us. The second is 6 months lockdown hasn't been easy. And once Swami was telling us, he says, do you know, something was there and he was saying, Sunday, tumko to classes nahi hai, tumko ye nahi hai. He says, do you know, for last 40 years, I don't have a day off. The day I wake up, what I do, at what time I come for darshan, everything I have been following exactly. Why? How difficult is it to follow some schedule and some regime for you? So my only request and what I have myself tried to do during this pandemic lockdown has been look inside, pray in whatever way you have a prayer to whomever you have a prayer have to pray. Follow a regime like discipline. It brings a lot of sense into your own this thing. It makes semblance and be in the moment instead of trying to worry about tomorrow. That's not how Bhagwan would want us to live. He's always said that the present is omnipresent. It has the seeds for the future and it has the fruits of the past. Let's not worry about it. I had a lot of other things to talk about, but I think the times maybe some other time. And it has been absolutely a pleasure. My pranams to Bhagwan that he gives us the wisdom to go through life. We have to remember that the Bhagwan symbol is a Sarvadharma symbol. It's about love all, serve all. Simple things, help ever, hurt never. If we try and follow that, I think Bhagwan will be very happy with that. Sairam. If there are any questions, maybe Siddharth or Simon, we can have it. Thank you.
Saram brother, there are a couple of questions we can quickly take it across. So someone has asked that when we are down in terms of we are sad, we are feeling very negative in our lives. How, I mean, it may not be very easy to pray or go to reach out to Swami. In terms of your mind may not be there to actually turn to Swami. How, I mean, you would have faced such situations in life. So
I face it all. I face it all the time. I still remember my when I was young. Nimish bhai used to talk about the anger bit. That's anger always goes like this. So either walk away, see yourself in the mirror, or lie down because you're just dissipating its ability to transmit to somebody else. So negativity is like that. I face negativity as a way of life, professionally, personally. You just have. You're a human being, and I think the most important thing there is about don't take a decision at that point of time. Do anything. Do nothing. Sometimes itself is also okay. It doesn't mean you're lazy, but do nothing is a very active way because you have to actually stop yourself from doing anything or feeling. The second is, I think all of us need to have our own passions as well, whether it is singing. Some people just have to follow a particular, you need to have a pattern, and which is why I talked about pattern does break down the negativity significantly. That's been my experience. I won't talk about cycling and running because that is spirituality for me every time. I still remember going up. We used to do a welcome visitors in Dharmakshetra. So when you are going up the slope, you out of humility, right? You have to look down, and that's what I do when I'm cycling. I look down when I'm going downhill at a very high speed. I remind myself saying, after every day, there is a night. After every night, there is a day. So there will come an uphill. Don't be so happy. So it just allows you to be slightly better at being equanimity. I mean, not that all of us are, but still.
yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's really, it gives the perspective that I think they were looking at. Another question: there's a lot of interest about the debate that happened in Swami's presence. So one of the relevant questions people are asking is, often in life you come across gray decisions that you have to make, which are it is not either right or wrong, it is a gray area, and you don't know whether it is your mind that is talking or it is it is Swami's will and wisdom that is acting through you. So how do we, in those instances, how do we plan out our action? Should we use our logic and plan, or should we go with the flow?
I think I'll make a small attempt, and there is no right or wrong here. I think faith and experience, as I said, is a matter of where we stand in our this thing. We can always say at the ultimate level, saying everything is happening. Swami has said not even a leaf can move without my this thing. But are we at operating at that level? Probably not. So being praying and taking the consequences of whatever action, as long as we are open to bearing the consequences, good or bad, and saying it is for you, it is at your feet, we are doing a samarpan, that helps. So you are actually extricating yourself from that action, and that does help you. Does that mean you don't get a wrong reaction? Absolutely no. So I'll share a small thing. It's not about right or wrong. I used to get intimidated significantly by my boss, okay, at one of the places. Extremely couldn't manage it. I mean, he was not my boss then. If he used to come down here, I used to actually turn. I can you believe I used to turn around and go in some other direction so that I don't have to face him. And it used to frustrate him. Finally, in one particular day, somewhere out of the country, we were at some conference, and he took me aside and he says, "What are you doing? Why are you? I have given you so much of tough times. Why have you tried to avoid? And why don't you come back to me? Why don't you fight with me?" I said, I can only be good to you. I don't know. I mean, there is no point. That's not what I learned. So if you want to keep fighting with me, best is for me to avoid you. And he said, okay, but I am getting frustrated because I'm not seeing any reaction from you. Today, he is one of my best friends. He's been my mentor. He's the one who pushed me into cycling. So, transformation. That's the point. It just has to come, and you just try and remember. I'm sure there will be things which will push you in the right, but don't take that, dissociate, whether it is good or bad. Just take it as prasad and just go with it.
I think that also answers Brother Parikshit's question. Each reply of yours, in fact, each incident that you narrated was so nectarine, and it was taking a lot of people who are your batchmates and people who have lived times with you, taking them back to Swami, and there's so much of wisdom with those memories that we can incorporate in our daily life. And really would like to thank you on behalf of the entire team who's here and all the devotees who have attended this session. We have been able to spend time with Swami because of you. Go on.
Dinesh, 30 seconds. I thought it is important to repeat a particular incident, just for everyone, about Bhagwan. And I've mentioned this in the past, but it's something which is so relevant at any point of time, about the action, inaction, and so on and so forth. I think it was in my last day, 9th March or something, in 1994. Um, Swami had called us in, speaking to us, about 8, 9 of us. There is in fact a photograph of those, all of those in the interview room. There might be. And after that, Bhagwan said, "You people must be hungry." Got us. So we said yes, shamelessly. And then Swami, of course, said that, okay, now you sit. Let me go. He got us some food to eat from from his kitchen. There was chakli, murukku, and some sweet. We had that, hammered it. Then he said, "Oh, I'll give you some cold water." Got cold water bottles, glasses, and he says, "You don't. I am serving you." Gave all of us. At 5:15, the flute started, and he said, "Okay, now go." We all stood up and dusted all the murukku tidbits on the floor. And he says, "See, this is how you do in life. When you are faced with a problem on yourself, you are just dusting, saying, I have nothing to do with it." So next minute, a few of us, even more shameless, bent down and pushed all those crumbs under Swami's chair in the interview room. He says, "This is what you people do again. When blamed for that, you are pushing it under God and saying, take care of it now. So now it is my problem now that you have handed it over." So didn't know. So he says, "I'm going to now clean this." So we said, no, no, no. So one of us went in and got a broom, and he says, "No, you have already transferred it to me. Now it is me. Stand there." And he actually swept the floor off it. That is what I hope answers the action and whenever faced. So that is something which I have mentioned in the past, but I thought it is important that we should repeat that. Sairam. Dinesh.
Sairam. I request Nimesh Uncle to share a few words before we.
Sairam. Sairam to Pushkar, all the way across the continent. And really, really happy to hear you, Pushkar. In a nostalgic memory, looking at you, hearing you, and seeing you now just draws me back to so many good memories. Anmol Rao, and right behind you is Dharmakshetra's photograph, right behind you is the stupa. And really amazing to hear you, Pushkar. And it's been a great lesson for all of us. In fact, Kamla and I both have learned so much from all that you've shared with us. And brought tears in our eyes, remembering Swami and what Swami can do to all of us. It's an amazing story. And I think this Samarpan talks, I think this time Siddharth must not only print the second volume fast, but even bring out all the answers which all the young brothers have given us to the questions that we've raised. Have been amazing lessons. Pushkar, Sai Ram, and thank you very much. Very happy
Sai
to
Ram.
listen to you today. Sai Ram.
Sairam, express gratitude to Swami for having this session, made this session possible. We end today's program by Om Shanti Shanti. We chant Samasta Loka and Om Shanti. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।